Hello, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me again. I'm here in the studio today and I'm thinking of doing a little experiment. Now, you know, I'm always trying to find ways to do something different with my photography, and I'm always also trying to find ways to make consistency between shots. And so I thought, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to think about this, putting a dot on the viewfinder so I can always put one thing in the same position, and that will give consistency to a set of shots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out on this old camera all but a small area of the frame, and then I'm going to make sure I get my subject in that, and I won't be able to see what's going on in the rest of the frame. And I think that will add some sort of excitement and interest to the shots, because quite often you can be distracted by what's going on around the edges and trying to make sure everything works together. It could result in some awful photographs, but that's the experiment. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to get some masking tape. I'm going to cut a little mask around here, and I will see what I can do with a roll of Colour Plus maybe? Yeah, I think that will be good. Right, let's crack on. Okay, so what I need to account for is the exposure reading I think is taken from here. So what I just did off camera was use a piece of paper with a square cut out of it on here to act as my mask, but then I noticed that the camera was massively overexposing. So what I need to do instead is use something that's not completely black, but that's translucent enough to not distract me with what's going on in the rest of the frame. So I think a piece of actual negative will work really well. But what I need to do is see how much light that's absorbing so that I can get the exposure reading correct. So if it's saying that actually it's 30th of a second, I know that it's overexposing because of this, so I then need to compensate the other way and it should work. So I need to cut down this piece to fit. This isn't actually going to show up in the picture. This is just a guide. I could be all accurate and measure it, but that's not me, and it doesn't matter. There we go. That's completely in there. Yeah, I can see it. So now I need to draw on it the area where I want my attention to be drawn, and I'm going to have it pretty much on the rule of thirds because that's where you want it, but it's the size of the square as well, so I can pop that on there. There you go, I've drawn my little square on, and then what I will do is I will cut it out, and I will then use the marker pen again just to draw around the edge to make it clear where I want it. There we go, nice little window. Okay, so what we now need to do is work out how much light is lost when using that. So I'll put on the lens, 50mm lens, switch on the camera, it's aperture priority, it's saying 1/180th of a second. Yeah, okay, so double-sided sticky tape, cut as small and thin a line as I can, and that should adhere it to, I guess, the ground glass, the mat. So before I remove the sticky bits, I'm going to make sure I've got the mat the right way around. Yeah, I want it the other way because everything's mirrored, obviously. So then I remove these sticky bits, the backing paper, stick that onto there, and that is on the mat there now. So hopefully if I click it, I put the lens back on, and repeat 60th. Let's try going up to +2. Oh, it's the other way. We want to go to -2, don't we? We want to underexpose it. And that's saying 1/180th, which is what we had there. So that mask is removing 2 stops of light from the meter, but not from what we're actually taking the picture of. So we need to underexpose so that we don't overexpose. Does that make sense? I hope I've got that right. I think I have. But maths never my strong point, nor logic. I am an emotional person, as you have probably worked out by now. But I will try not to get too emotional and angry if I get this wrong. It does work. If I look through the viewfinder, I can see I'm thinking there might be an issue with focusing. We shall see. It's an experiment, and experiments, you don't expect everything to go perfectly, otherwise you wouldn't need to do the experiment, would you? As I've said many times. Let's load up. As I said, colour plus. 36 shots. Let's go and take some pictures. Okay, so this could be my first test. I'm going to try and get that 30 in the square and use that as the background interest. Could work. As always, these are test shots. I'm not expecting to create great art here, but you can see that the exposure is correct and the 30 sign is in the correct spot where I put the mask. So all good. Okay, so I want to get a picture of this sign when it flashes through. There's a thing that says, "You are tougher than you think," and a person going past it. If I can fit that into the same spot, oh there it is, where I fitted the street sign before, it should gel with that shot because it's in the same position, it's the same size, even though it's a slightly different shape and a different area. Anyway, let's see if it works. Yeah, I quite like this image. It would be better if it was just the man, I think, and the street furniture, the poles, wreck everything as always, but I cannot bring myself to use Photoshop to remove them because they were there. I just needed to compose the shot better. But in terms of how it works alongside the other one, you can see that although they are in the same position, maybe they don't seem to gel as much as I'd hoped. Let's see if we can do better. Should we go for another street sign? They seem to work. Again, it might be like a theme that the street signs are always in the same place. That might work even if the whole concept in itself doesn't work. So yeah, a fairly boring shot of a street sign with a pub. But if we look at it with the other ones, you can see that it does work as a set this time, and that's really important. I think the idea is you need to have something that is exactly the same size, it's the same sort of object, it's not just that it's something in a particular place. And so you can see with this one, when you've got people, even if one of those people is the pedestrian sign on a pedestrian crossing, these shots all gel together as well. As I said, they're not particularly interesting photographs in themselves, but they do show that if you want to get consistency in a set of pictures, having something the same size in the same position in the frame does create a kind of unifying effect. So excuse the interruption by myself, but I just wanted to say that all this hassle of putting bits of masking stuff inside your SLR, your film SLR, can be avoided by using a digital camera which has a screen on the back, or obviously a rangefinder if you've got a cheap Leica lying around. You could probably do it without all this faffing as well. And I will show you how you can just do exactly the same thing like that. But I hate composing on a screen. I'd much rather be looking through there, and so I think it's worth going to that effort. Also, on a bright day like today, lots of snow, it is really hard to actually see what you're doing. Looking at that screen, it's very hard to see in that little portion, and I think it works a lot better when you're doing that. But it is possible, and here are some pictures to show that it can be done on this. So here you can see, I think it does bind the pictures together, the fact that the key subject point is in the same position in the frame each time, and it's more or less the same size as well. Obviously use of colour and shape helps bind things together too, but I think even with just the positioning you can see that it does work. So there we go, another experiment completed. What did you think? Did you enjoy the ride? Drop me a comment, let me know what you thought. I always love to hear from you. And as always, please do like, share, subscribe. It really, really helps me out. But that's it for this time. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves, enjoy what you're shooting. Bye for now.